Greeting, we the people. This is Sensible Truth on the Medlock Post, and this is episode 26. And we are here to lift, inspire, and encourage. I'm Richard G. Medlock, your host, and this is our first in a series of celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. Not every show, but we're going to do a lot of shows about the founding fathers, heroes, achievements, the greatness of America that is still there. All you have to do is look. We're going to talk about many things to help you understand how great America really is and why we are still standing after 250 years. It's going to be interesting as we look at things. A lot of history, a lot of constitutional things, and a lot of things that will help you understand the founding fathers better. Now, today, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a backdrop, some information to help you understand what the founding fathers were thinking when they formed the United States of America, when they put this together, from Adam Smith to John Locke to Cicero and many others, Montesquieu and Blackstone and others, who helped form the ideology of these great men. Plus, they had the inspiration of our Creator, the Almighty, in forming this country into a free land. And our founding fathers hoped that this would spread to other countries. And in many ways, it has. Our Constitution has been copied in many ways and forms throughout the world in over 130 countries. So let's begin here and see what we have to show you. The preamble of the United States Constitution. So let's take a look at this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Now, we'll do a show just on the preamble and talk about what these things really mean and maybe how far our government has gotten away from them. But not today. Now, let's start with this quote by Donald J. Trump. Quote, "From the very beginning of this journey, I have been on a mission to rescue our nation from a failed and corrupt political establishment. I will never quit, I will never bend, I will never break, and I will never yield, not even in the face of death itself." Now let those words sink in from him. He has shown he is living up to those words. Now, in April of 2015, when he and Melania Trump rode down that escalator at Trump Tower and announced he was running for president of the United States of America, the war started. Because in that statement, he says, "I will never allow the globalist to take over this country, the United States." And he meant that. So when you look at this quote and see what he's doing today, I don't care if you like the guy or not, he is saving America and the United States Constitution. That's what he's doing. And it's never ending. So we're going to look at this because he stood there and announced to the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the World Bank, and the Bilderberg Group, and the Center for just went on my head. But all these organizations that were globalist, the European Union was one of them. I will not allow you to take over our country. It's not going to happen. And when we look at what he's done, especially this year, this second term, his first term, he was hogtied by his own party. But look at what he got done. And now look what he's getting done, and they're still fighting him. But I think he's going to overcome that. And you watch it. We'll get into that. But let's move forward with some quotes. John Locke, who believed in freedom. First, all men are created equal. We see this. Thomas Jefferson studied John Locke. So did James Madison and George Washington and others. All men are created equal. Not all men are equal. They're created equal. Different talents, different ambitions, different desires, or none at all. And it's up to that individual to do what the best he can with them. And the founding fathers wanted to create a system, which they did, a culture, I might add, that allowed men to be free, to produce, to sell, to negotiate, to be free, and have a limited government. Second thing John Locke believed in was certain basic rights exist independent of government. He believed that these rights come from God, our Creator. He knew Cicero, natural law, Creator's law. These basic laws and rights cannot be changed by man. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. Third, John Locke believed government exists to protect those rights. Yes, that is government's job. When you look at the preamble, that is their job. So let's move on from this. Thomas Jefferson's famous phrase, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. John Locke, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Cicero, John Locke, Montesquieu, Blackstone, Algernon Sidney, all through the ages, this was taught. And it's in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's why these men looked at a Judeo-Christian civilization to support freedom, that can support. John Locke again, reading furnishes the mind with materials of knowledge. It is thinking that makes what we read ours. To love truth for truth's sake is the principal part of human perfection in this world, and the seed plot of all other virtues. Truth, sensible truth. God gave man agency to use his own mind, his own knowledge, his own reasoning power that God gave us to search for truth. Man was not made to create truth. Man was made to search for truth and find it. Reading and thinking about it makes it ours. Not to sit there and be indoctrinated into a bunch of garbage that is against truth, it's against God's plan, and it's against reason. This is what the founding fathers were looking at. This is what they understood. They knew that they had to have a virtuous and moral society for the Constitution to succeed. They said so. Many of them said so. And before they wrote the Declaration of Independence, they were concerned. Do we have a virtuous enough society that can be self-governing on their own? This conversation took place 3 years before the Declaration of Independence. That message went out and it took them 3 years to get to that comfort level that they felt as an independent nation, as an independent community, we can be self-governing because of our morals and our virtues. This is what America stands for. John Locke set forth the principle which carried over into the thinking of the American founders when he wrote, "The law of nature stands as an eternal rule to all men, legislators as well as others. The rules that they make for man's actions must be conformable to the law of nature, to the will of God. The laws that we make as man should conform to God's law." Now let's take this a next step and look at what William Blackstone said about this. Man, considered as a creature, must necessarily be subject to the laws of his creator. This will of his maker is called the law of nature. This law of nature, being coeval with mankind and dictated by God himself, is of course superior in obligation to any other. Now, understand that. God is the higher power. God is omnipotent. He knows all things. He knows all of us individually, what we're going to do before we do it. He knows our hearts and minds. That is foremost. Blackstone continued, "It is binding over all the globe in all our countries and at all times. No humans are of any validity if contrary to this, the laws of God." Now, we all can sit back and start listing laws that have been made by man in this country that contradict or do not conform to God's law. We know this. Matter of fact, half the law, more than that. I don't know. It's a lot. Now, the one thing about this, let me add this in here. We, as we follow our conscience, know that we do not have to obey a bad law. And we'll get to that in a second. If it's a bad law, let me give you an example. In many states now, it's legal to have an abortion. We don't have to obey that. We don't have, oh, the law says it's okay to do that. We don't have to do that. In God's eyes, it's murder. Now, that's the big debate, and that's fine. I probably just insulted a lot of people, but that's fine. That's your feeling. That's my knowledge. But we don't have to obey that. No. It's legal to drink alcohol. God said that's bad for man. Same with smoking. Another thing, drugs and other things. Beating your wife, beating kids, abuse. Of course, we have laws against that, but still. Now, Algernon Sidney, who was a contemporary of John Locke, the two of them helped create the revolution in England in their time. Algernon got hung for it. He says, "Whether the supreme power be in the people, I say that they, including himself, who place the power to govern in a multitude, understand a multitude composed of free men who think it for their convenience to join together and to establish such laws and rules as they oblige themselves to observe. So, what he is talking about here is we, the people. The people have the power. And this is why they hung him in England. He helped overthrow the king and bring in a new king and queen, another bloodline. But we, the people, this is what they were talking about, even in the 16th century. Now, let's look at Thomas Jefferson's words in the Declaration of Independence. Therefore emphasized the feelings of the American people when he wrote, quote, prudence indeed will dictate that government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. So what happens here is dictators, monarchs, tyrannists, they make the people afraid of them. So people would rather suffer than go about taking care of the problem. We see that in America. People sit back and, oh, that's just the way it is, just the way it is, etc. But no, people like Donald Trump say, this is wrong, we're going to change it. This is corrupt, this is bad, we're going to change it. Now, what gives him the authority to do that? Thomas Jefferson and the Declaration of Independence. Continuing from what we just read, it's all in the same paragraph. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Unquote. Now, this does not mean overthrow the Constitution. The Constitution and the government are two different things. The Constitution are the rules and guidelines by which government operates. Sadly, the government of the United States, whether it's federal or state or local, many have gone off this path and become the despots that the founding fathers were referring to. So this, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the big picture, this gives Donald J. Trump, as a private citizen, as a businessman, as a father, as president of the United States, the right to throw off despotic, tyrannical government and to safeguard the future. This is what he's doing. Let's expand this thinking here. In John Locke's second essay concerning civil government, he says this, quote, the reason why men enter into society is the preservation of their property. Therefore, whenever the legislators endeavor to take away and destroy the property of the people or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they, the officials of government, put themselves into a state of war with the people, who are thereupon absolved from any further obedience and are left to the common refuge which God hath provided for all men against force and violence. Now, this is what Thomas Jefferson was looking at when he wrote the previous words. we have the right to throw off such government because they put themselves at war, a state of war with the people and their rights and their freedom. Donald Trump understands that. We understand that. Many of us in America understand this. This is what we're trying to do with Donald Trump's leadership is throw off this despotic government. Are they taking property away? Absolutely. Are they getting people under slavery? Think about the welfare system. Think about that. Think about how they regulate businesses and manufacturers and farmers. Think about all the regulations that have been put on there to control what they do. Now let's look at Mandani in New York now. Of course, he did not tell the truth to get elected. And look what's happening to New York. Look at Chicago. Look at California. With despotic leaders, this is what happens. It is a state of war with the people that they put themselves into to take away and destroy the property. Property can be many things. It could be your business. It could be your money. It could be your opportunity for pursuit of happiness. This is what we're talking about here. Continuing with this second essay. Whensoever, therefore, the legislature shall transgress this fundamental rule of society, and either by ambition, fear, folly, or corruption, endeavor to grasp themselves or put into the hands of any other an absolute power over the lives, liberties, and estates of the people, by this breach of trust, they, the government officials, forfeit the power the people had put into their hands, and it dissolves to the people who have a right to resume their original liberty and provide for their own safety and security, which in essence is what the founding fathers did. We will have a limited government over here. You go do what you do best and make a living out of it, provide services for other people, create, produce, sell at a free market. But if the government gets in the way, they forfeit the power the people would put into their hands. We, the people. So the founding of America was not the original thought of we, the people, or the power within the people, giving that to government. Versus government was the power, the king or queen was the power, the monarch was the power, the despot, the dictator, all of them were the only power. Not in America. Not in America. Now let's go to the Federalist number 47. This is James Madison in the Federalist Papers. Folks, if you have not studied the Federalist Papers, please do so. You want to make something yours? Study the Federalist Papers. He says here, quote, when the legislative and executive powers are united in the same person or body, there can be no liberty because apprehensions may arise lest the same monarch or senate should enact tyrannical laws to execute them in a tyrannical manner. Were the power of judging joined with the legislative, the life and liberty of the subject would be exposed to arbitrary control, for the judge would then be the legislator. Were it joined to the executive power, the judge might behave with all the violence of an oppressor, unquote. Folks, this is the definition of tyranny. And we are seeing this in the United States of America today. We have an executive branch and a Senate that put in all these rogue judges, 250 of them, after Trump was elected in 2024. Literally, their orders were to stop his movement, to stop his work. They've tried, and they continue to try. And we had a judge in California the other day said, uh, I'm ordering the 13 billion or 103 billion or whatever it was to be returned to whoever paid it. And I will be the sole judge making these rulings. Well, she had her head handed to her on a platter by the appellate court this weekend. Who do you think you are? Nobody gave you this power. There is no judge in this land who is the sole judge of anything. We were warned, James Madison set forth here, if the power of judging joins with the legislature, the life and liberty of subject would be exposed to arbitrary control. They can just make up all the rules. We see that. Judges have become legislators, creating laws out of thin air. We've seen this for many years. Trump says this needs to end. Many of us have been saying this for 40 years. So when you have the judicial and the executive and the legislative working together, as we did under Obama and Biden, this is why we have the problems. This is why today, when we look at trying to reverse the badness that happened under under Biden, this is why it's going to take time. But people in the Republican Party, the Democrats, rogue judges are sitting there trying to stop Donald Trump and we the people from correcting this corruption, because that's what it is, corruption. From Thomas S. Monson, we get this. We forget how the Greeks and Romans prevailed magnificently in a barbaric world and how that triumph ended, how a slackness and softness finally overcame them to their ruin. In the end, more than they wanted freedom, they wanted security and a comfortable life, and they lost all comfort and security and freedom. Benjamin Franklin told us, if you want to give away your freedom for security, you will have neither. You will have neither. We look at other civilizations. The founding fathers did. They knew what caused their downfall, and other civilizations throughout history. They studied. Most of them were self-educated. Now, Thomas Sowell gives us this, quote, every system has flaws, but freedom allows correction while tyranny forbids it. This fits perfectly into what we're talking about today. Freedom, ladies and gentlemen, we should do everything in our power to protect and fight for freedom in this country. It's under attack every day. And Donald Trump is standing up. From the very beginning of this journey, I have been on a mission to rescue our nation from a failed and corrupt political establishment. I will never quit. I will never bend. I will never break, and I will never yield, not even in the face of death itself. That should be our motto as well if we want to maintain freedom, if we want to maintain the Constitution as the rule of law. Now, we don't have time to get into what happened to the education system. That's another show. But let me give you kind of a time frame, quick time frame of when this all change took place. Now, the Communist Manifesto was released in February of 1848. It even influenced some things prior to the Civil War and even influenced it even happening. Not in the Confederacy, but in the Union. But people started falling under this spell of this crazy ideology. And one of them was Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States. Now, his big advisor was Charles House, who was a communist, a follower of Karl Marx. Now, in 1913, under Woodrow Wilson, we got taxation, the 16th Amendment, 17th Amendment, that senators were elected by the public instead of being elected by states' legislatures to go to D.C. to defend the state, to protect the state. That was the last wall of protection for the states in this country. And we got the Federal Reserve. And that's a whole show by itself. But ladies and gentlemen, Woodrow Wilson, after World War II, World War I, and they went to the Versailles Treaty in Paris, France, and to negotiate everything that had taken place during the war, the surrender things, who was going to get what, etc. Now, several things came out of that. One of the biggest things was the Ottoman Empire, which was headquartered in Istanbul, Turkey, controlled all the Middle East and part of Northern Africa. That was the Ottoman Empire, the Muslims, the Muslim Brotherhood. What you see in the Middle East today did not exist prior to that date. It was all the Ottoman Empire. So they broke it up. The Versailles Treaty, those there broke up the Ottoman Empire and gave each state its own power. But here's what Woodrow Wilson was trying to do. He worked for 3 months to get this done. He wanted to form a one world government. Now, that failed for many reasons, and the League of Nations was formed, which eventually turned into the United Nations, which is, both of them were a total disaster. The League of Nations should be disbanded, or the United Nations. Now, Woodrow Wilson wanted a one world government. That is communism. We still hear about that today. George H. Bush, the first Bush, talked about a one world order, a one world government. His son talked about it. Bill Clinton talked about it. Obama talked about it. Joe Biden talked about it. And Democrats today are still talking about it. The World Economic Forum still talks about it. The United Nations still talks about it. But why can't they get it done? They have to have the United States of America to fall, to fail, to go begging to them, save us. And Donald Trump and we the people are saying, not on our watch. It's not going to happen. So why did the one world government fail with Woodrow Wilson? Because the European countries and others said, whoa, wait a minute. America is stronger than all of us. You saved us and pulled us out of World War I. We'd have been here for who knows how long and continue to lose hundreds of thousands of men, and our country's destroyed. And you came over here and saved us. And we're afraid that Woodrow Wilson will want to take over control of that one world government. Look at the irony of that situation and where it is today. Because all of those countries in Europe, almost all of them, the European Union was a movement to one world government. They didn't learn from history, did they? No, they didn't. So when we look at history, that's when it started, folks, right there. And it just escalated. And then you had the Communist Party of the USA come in, and we've talked about what they wanted to do, and they've achieved most of it. And we might have to do a show just to review that. But this has been a slow process. Communists don't care. They have patience. So we have so many things to get into. But this is my message today, that how this country was founded, the knowledge, the beliefs, the Judeo-Christian values that founded this country are being corrupted by our own government, by our schools, by individuals, by billionaires. And we're trying to stop it. But we need everybody's help. Ladies and gentlemen, I love America. I love the Constitution. I love God. I love my family. And I pray that all of us will catch this vision to defend America and liberty and freedom. God gave us freedom. And he wants us to defend it even to our life, to our death if we have to. Just don't surrender. Because that's Satan. Satan wants to control everybody. We can't let him do that. May God bless America. May God bless you in your efforts. And I pray that this message resonates with you and that you can take some steps, figure out some steps you can take to help save the United States of America. God bless you and God bless America. Goodbye.